To just set some context, the government of India in 2019 launched the flagship National Clean Air Program, which includes 131 cities in the country, and the intention was to bring down PM levels by 20 to 30% by 2024. And with over 9,000 crores, I think, disbursed to local urban local bodies in these cities. In fact, a recent analysis of where we use satellite data showed that PM 2.5 levels across the country have dipped slightly and might be plateauing, but it does continue to remain above safe limits for most part of the year. So uh, we also know that the problem is not limited to particulate matter. There is also enough evidence about health impacts of air pollution, and there are well-established global and international research that kind of supports this. But in India, there is still a need to build a case that would put health at the center of air quality management. So, what is it that we need to do more of, less of, in a better way, and so that we can get the most benefits of our effort? And as NCAP Tracker on this Clean Air Day, we are trying to find some of those answers from you. So we have with us today Professor Abhishek Chakravarti from IIT Bombay, who, apart from his academic work in the air pollution space, has also closely worked with the NCAP implementing agencies over the past few years. We're also joined by Dr. Harshal Salve, who's the additional professor of community medicine at AIMS Delhi, and who is an expert, I know, in child and maternal health and the links of air pollution on human health. So, without further ado, I would like to ask both of you, from the point of view of your own expertise, what do you think is the current air quality landscape in India, and what probably would be your key concerns? Maybe Professor Chakravarti, if you could start.
First of all, we need to be realistic about our expectations from NCAP. This is the first thing because US EPA, with all their might, both financial and technological and intellectual, they took 3 to 4 decades to basically clean up their US air, which is now most of the 90% of the US is meeting their own standard. So we have to be realistic that 5 years is a very short time period. And since we do not have a very huge amount of expertise, which US or Europe has in air pollution from 90s, 50s, and 60s, because those are the initial industrialized countries which started feeling this problem very early on. If you try in Google, you'll figure out that the London smog event, then the California smog event, people used to wear gas masks even for daily things. So since we're much worse than what is currently now in Delhi in winter. So there's a hope that if they can do it, we can also do it. Yes, we have a late start, but I think this is an initiative positive in the sense so far that we are now meeting with the stakeholders or the implementing agencies. Before that, we actually never heard of them, or interaction was very infrequent and only very project to project basis, that too when their need arises. Now at least we are regular basis, we are meeting and we know the people who are responsible, and as academician I'm always trying to nudge them towards the right direction so that capacity building can happen and ultimately they take over and do not rely on the academician or the research institutes for even for the basic analysis or basic understanding whether a policy is working or not and what kind of policies to be implemented, what again what the US EPA has already achieved. So this is one thing. Second thing is that the air quality, when we talk about, we have to be mindful that tropical countries' air quality can never be as be compared directly with the tropical air quality of Western countries, because we have high temperature, more wind speed, more dust generation, and these are not toxic. Something that is we should be worried about until unless it's hugely contaminated, like a dust storm or something. So the air quality guideline, if we start comparing them with US EPA or European Union or WHO, WHO guidelines particularly, I think is pretty unrealistic, 5 microgram per meter cube. Then it would be a disservice to the all the agencies and to the people of this country. Our physiologically we are much able to cope with higher amount of pollutants. I would not term pollutant like dust, etc., which are natural born. And also because of the more tropical temperature, we have more vegetation. Some emissions come from that also. I think nobody is suggesting that cut down the trees to control those emissions. That would be absurd thing to do. So we have to be realistic that what is that safe guideline for the Indian people. Our physiology, our health, the what's the disease uh, pondness in terms of air pollution is our levels are very different than the Western countries. Unfortunately, the health data that is available to us is very scarce, and most of the time that model prediction that happens, that from you see the publication coming out from UK or US, they typically get the pollution data from our websites, and then they implement a model which is developed for their population, which is, I think, somewhat that is the criticism typically these studies. It not to say the situation is not great. Definitely, situation is a worrisome. It has to improve, but some of the values that come out is often it is not scientifically very accurate until unless we have done the modeling on our population based on our population by indicators, not using what is the heart rate or height or weight or this thing for the European and Caucasian population. Now, let's specifically come to NCAP. So, as I said, it's a good start that we are on same page now. At least everybody is, whether they thinking in terms of from financial point of view or from actually they are worried about the health. But we are actually meeting people and we are trying to educate them about how to implement the policies and assess the effectiveness of policy. And we have some successes with some of the municipal corporations. So that's a good part. The bad part, which I think it will take some time to evolve, is that now the focus of these agencies is basically to spend the money within certain time frame. So it's a 1 year. If you spend this money in 1 year, then you will get the next installment. I don't think this is the right approach. The academician already voiced this concern that now the focus is only to spend the money rather than how judicially it has been spending and what is the impact that spending having in terms of actual in ground realities. So this thing, something that municipalities or pollution control board also cannot control. They get the kind of mandate from the higher ops. So ministry level and CPCP level, this awareness has to be created that instead of a year by year, let's target 3 year or 5 year period, give them enough money and periodically track progress. But actual evaluation we will do after a 3 year or 5 year period, that how you spend the money and what is the actual impact that money or that spending happened in terms of air quality. So that will keep the pace, and also the people who are implementing NC, they will not be anxious in terms of spending money in all sorts of things which has no proven evidence that they actually implement something, actually change the overall air quality or long-term air quality. So that is something that needs to be done. Then the capacity building, which again will take some time, but at least we should start moving towards it. The people who are handling the NCAP in municipality level or even at pollution control level, they are either do not have the technical expertise or the technical expertise are not suitable for this kind of work, or they are simply doing bureaucratic work. The technical work basically put under consultation or in academician or research institutes, and that creates a gap between we have our own academics and our own research work. On top of that, if we have to do the data analysis, data crunching at a large scale, it will become difficult to us. One of the way it could be solved is that how to involve the students from our institutes in this NCAM program in a formal way, so that they could be act as an additional manpower without compromising the quality of the analysis and the scientific input. And the new staff that should be joining, they have a dedicated air quality cell or NCAP cell, whatever it may be, so that they can track on their own end that how whatever they are doing, how this is reflecting in data, and if not, why not, and what to be done. At that stage, the academic or research institution experts like us can come into picture, that for very specified dedicated technical input that is they are unable to figure out themselves. But right now what is happening is that from scratch we have to work with them, which is fine, but this is not a long term solution. This is not feasible. So they have to have their own manpower like USCPA have. Then they can liaison with us so they can better appreciate the inputs given, and they can also have the practical aspect that the solution that is provided by us, how practically it could be implemented, and then there is a back and forth can happen that this is the problem that is happening. The next what the improvement can happen is that there has to be a clarity that whenever some big funding or big purchase has to be made or big policy has to be decided, the IORs like us, institute like us, they had to taken on board. You cannot have a policy dictated from ministry on CPCB level where there may be an expert panel is there, but that expert panel can have an initial draft ready and sent out to all the IORs and get their input on board and then decide on the policy, because the policy for one city may not be the same as the policy for the other city. So this that input can come from IOR and also from the municipal institute. It seems that now what is happening is that CPCB or ministry is giving municipal corporation or SPCBs certain mandate that 80% has to be spent in EV, 10% has to be spent on this. But rationale is not clear then based on which rationale these percentages are being defined. So, and that cannot be same for every city. Thane may have different requirement from Badlapur or Mumbai. So then the local municipality and local institutes can give the input based on which this refinement could happen. So these are the things that I could right now think of that improvement needs to happen in NCAP to become more fruitful, and this should continue for at least 3 to 4 terms more, and then we should again re-evaluate that after 10 years, 15 years, what is happening. And trend analysis based on only 3 years of data saying it is increasing or decreasing, it is mathematically and scientifically not prudent.
Thank you so much. I think you gave us a very good overview of where NCAP is at and where the whole air pollution fight in the country is. If I could bring in Dr. Salve here to add in some health perspective on where the whole NCAP program also doesn't touch upon health a lot and how that could have changed.
As you rightly said in your opening statement, that health should be the agenda that should drive the mitigation action related to air pollution, which is currently not. If you see the Air Act itself, which is there in 1980s, it was mainly driven by the environmentalist, and most of the people currently working in this area are environmentalists. And we really see, let's say we have NCAP program for last 4 years, there is no health component there. So we are seeing, and we have another health program, which I am extensively involved with the Ministry of Health, that we call the National Program for Climate Change and Human Health, which has a climate change component, and air pollution is an important component, and the interventions through this program from the health side. But there also there is a lack of integration with the NCAP and I will say the Ministry of Environment related interventions. So one thing which is completely missing is the partnership, collaboration, and integration of the activities. And health should be the driver of this entire mitigation related measures, because ultimately what happens and what matters is the health of how you are improving the health of the people by addressing the various risks. It can be any risk. The air pollution is one of the risks, and to take action on the air pollution related mitigation, the health is an important convincing measure, I will say. Either you have to convince the policymakers to invest more funds to have more mitigation related intervention, or you to convince the community members, the society people, I will say, where we are actually all are working for improvement of their life, to take the measures at the individual level. So health becomes very central to this entire communication strategy, which is currently missing. And that's what I really used to speak on various platforms on this. Important thing is to mention, I think Professor Abhishek rightly mentioned, in terms of the contextualizing the actions, contextualizing the evidences, and the contextualizing the interventions what we are designing. We cannot compare because our geography is different, our and not only different, we have different states having a different geography. So we have a country within the country. We really have to have a very customized plan for mitigation with respect to air pollution related actions. So that is the one part. So we really need to contextualize. What we need to contextualize first, our air quality standards. So currently I am involved with a team of IIT Kanpur led by Professor Sharma. Currently CPCB are in a sort of process of revising the national air quality standards, which was last revised in 2009. So if you see the standards there currently which are existing, again, this is my personal opinion, that we are measuring most of the things which we do not have any information on, So we really have to be strategic in our measurement. We should not measure and invest resources just by increasing monitoring stations and measuring everything everywhere. That will not yield our appropriate economic resources, whatever limited resources we have. So we have to be very strategic in terms of the measurement of the air quality first. Second, we really need to be very pragmatic, I will say. I think Professor Abhishek also touched upon this. The pragmatic approach is required. What we can able to achieve, by what measures, and how we can able to achieve. That should be factor in. That should be factor in our planning process, right? So that is very important. So let me tell you from the health side, we have a program which is launched in 2010. We call it as a national NCD program. Now it is called. You see, most of the health hazard related to the air pollution exposure is non-communicable diseases. When I say non-communicable diseases, it includes hypertension, COPD, asthma, diabetes for that matter. So we already have a program which is running since, I will say, last decade or so across the state. We really need to integrate this program with the existing program, let's say NCAP or NPCCHH. So there is also lack of integration in the various health program also. So that integration has to be done. So when the policy level integration as well as the program level integration really needs to be done. Third, when we say the implementation and the actual intervention, we have, if I think you are aware of the Ujjwala scheme, that had made a really good impact if we talk about the indoor air pollution related risk are concerned. But we do not share any achievements of the Ujjwala scheme, what we have with the health side or vice versa. So that needs to be done. Whenever there is a recently evaluation has been conducted, and you will definitely will see the result of that evaluation. So that needs to be integrated. What action has to be taken? That has to be done. And for the evaluation of any program, for generating local evidence, what you need a data from both sides. We need a data from the exposure side related to exposure parameters. We need a data from the health side. So then I will say there is a huge deficiency in terms of giving access to the data, in terms of the giving a customized data, availability of the data. Data quality is another part. I will not touch upon that. The first step is access. Then we go to the quality and other more refined aspect of it. So data availability for generating localized evidence. If you believe it, WHO estimates are based on the very few studies which are conducted mostly from the southern part, right? From the Delhi NCR few regions. So most of the east region, most of the west region, central region in Indian country are missing from the estimates. So there is a huge sort of gap of local evidence, I will say. And you will often hear in policy circle that there is no evidence, This is a reason we really need to strive for generating more evidence with the integration of the exposure scientists. Let's say we have a IIT scientists and the health scientists at a local level, at the state level, I will say, to generate more local evidence and to inform policymaker, look, this is happening. This is the evidence of linkages with the health. More so, now we are moving towards more mitigation related interventions. So we also need to generate the evidence at the local level, what works, what doesn't work. As Professor Day suggested, there are many actions people take it without having any evidence. Let's say smoke tower is one of the example, if I just want to quote, right? So what are the interventions which are useful at what level? That needs to be evaluated scientifically at various level. There is a scope of science which is still there. I think it will be there times to come. So as a advocate of the science, I will definitely say that we really need to invest in the science. We really need to invest in collaborative efforts of the exposure scientists, of the health scientists, I will say, of the NGO partners, the private sector, to generate more local evidence. This will ensure two things. First, it will generate a local really database which will help us to take action which is very customized. You need not have to depend on the global burden of disease study, which has very limited input from India or some other modeling based. I think Professor Day is aware of the model based estimates which are available, which are conducted outside the country. So we should not be dependent on their estimates. We should generate our own local data, more local data, which is more localized, customized. So this will achieve that. Second, it will sensitize both the policymakers to take a continued stringent action, to continue investment in the science, developing science, as well as taking actions related to air pollution. And second, to sensitize the community. If you talk about the health side, we have ASHA. I'm not sure you have heard of this name, Accredited Social Health Activist. So they are our prime mover, or the connecting link between the society, community, and the health system. So all these health related data and the impact of air pollution, if you sensitize them, we are generating a lot of material to sensitize them. They will help them to motivate them to take actions to the community. Ultimately, it has to be a community generating campaign to take action at the individual level. Then we can sort of have some improvement in the health outcome. I will give example of the tobacco. We have to fight a long battle to have tobacco related interventions to generate awareness at the community level. There are various interventions. So as Professor Abhishek also said, that it's just, I will say, the first leg of our program, both from the health side as well as from the environment side. So we really need to invest more. We need to partner more. We need to integrate our actions more. And definitely in decades to come, we will surely see the change what we want, actual change what we want, not in terms of air quality per se, but as well as from the health side. Definitely. We are moving in the right direction. We really need to step up or change a gear to the fifth gear, I will say. Thank you.
Dr. Salve, I think that encompassed a lot of things and also threaded together with what Professor Abhishek had to say. Coming back to you, Professor Chakravarti, I just wanted to. You did mention about the gaps that are in NCAP and how they can be fulfilled, but NCAP's first deadline is less than about 6 months away, and like you mentioned, we would probably see a renewal, maybe in terms of an extension in deadlines or like a bigger mission. What do you think would kind of right now be the ideal long-term plan for this program or air quality management strategies in general?
So timeline is actually will depend on that how much expertise we are generating in the air quality field. As Dr. Salve rightly said, there's a huge scientific gap. Many of the model-based studies using emission inventory or the health data, as I said, taking from the US and Europe, and in your country-based. So I would say NCAP should link into that. That how can you develop health data from every district, every state, and simultaneously measuring air quality data. And not only that, only some blood samples, some biological sampling data, which will really tell you about the toxicity and the state of the health in reality. Because otherwise, what happens, you will have some kind of model which only link PM and COPD, PM versus asthma, which are most empirical model. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But real biological work, so that's a whole different level where Dr. Salvek would come into picture, and people like him, they are the experts here. So toxicological studies based on that can be done. So that could be a huge part of NCAP, and it should be a huge part of NCAP. Then the indoor air quality, which is where we're spending most of our time, which is completely neglected. But I think at this moment, because it's a beginning phase, we should not expect everything to come together at this stage. But I would like to see that some steps has been taken in those direction, so that next 5 year, maybe after that, we should be saying that, okay, now these linkages has been done. Yes, lot more studies, data, countrywide programs is to be done, linkaging from the academic institution to the district level hospitals to dispensaries, all those things. So I could say multiple laterals now can emerging out from this. But for all this to happen, the streamlining and the seamless coordination needs to be done. Funding has to be allocated, and funding has to be allocated based on evidence, on the things that are working, and evidence that suggests that could work. Like even if you say that, okay, I'm going to allocate 50% on electric vehicle, where is the modeling study that supports that yes, if you invest 50% in EV, there could be, if not 50%, 30% reduction in PM will happen. Okay, then substantiated by the measurement. So same for the epidemiological studies also, Dr. Salve could suggest model which can give you that if you do kind of exercise, this kind of probable benefit could be there. So invest on this. The rationale again, which is missing right now, that how we are deciding which sector to get what amount of fund. And I'm emphasizing on the fund because none of us can do anything without the availability of proper funding. So we know that we are not US, we are not Europe, or our this thing is limited. But at the same time, I think we are quite capable of doing better work in terms of minimum resources. But that minimum resources has to be given. And then when you collaborate and cooperation begins to happen, then that when you pull in the resources for different aspects, then it becomes a bigger pool. So then things become to really move in the right direction. So here we should not be working in silos. We should be coming together, and NCAP should enable this both administratively and financially. There may be a component added that your finances will not be released even if you show improvement until you show that 5 different sectors come together and work towards it. Some kind of push needs to be given. Either without that, right now the entire financial authority with the pollution control board and ministry, and we have to rely, I think same with maybe the medical field also, they have to rely on these bodies, and they can use this as a tool to basically delay the study or maybe push it in a different direction than what is being needed. I'm not saying they're ill intentioned, but they may not understand the scientific understanding behind that. Again, the lack of expertise. Another thing I will tell in that may not be directly to NCAP, but something to do with educational policy, is that in IIT we are dealing with the cream of the student, but then also find that many of the PhDs or masters, they have no idea about air quality and health. They have not read even a single subject about this in their entire curriculum. I mean, they are coming from elite BTech institutions, top level, state level institution. Air quality they are hearing for the first time. They have may read it in environmental science, that common subject as per the Supreme Court, but it is like a maybe a 1 week course, that all. So without this from very BTech or undergraduate level, how we are expecting to have enough manpower to support this initiative when this NCAP actually takes off? Let's say 5 or 10 years down the line, we have a lot, many cities are under measurement and health data coming in. What's the use of that data is nobody is there to analyze them, to get scientific output out of them. So with current manpower, we are going to absolutely inundated. I think even the medical fraternity is going to completely inundated. If this 10 years down the line, manpower with sufficient scientific expertise is not being ready right now. The plan should be right now that what is the manpower available 10 years down the line. Without that, we may have resources, we may have a lot of monitoring station, we may have a lot of medical data, but it will not ultimately lead to the scientific conclusion and in ground reality changes. So that is the major thing that I'm seeing could be a potential problem if you're not being serious about it. And the local institutes that are IORs, like non-IIT, non-NIT institutes, I do not see any involvement of them. I do not know whether they are doing their own and their capacity with the pollution control board, but we are not aware of this. So at least if we can develop some kind of expertise at that level, that local colleges, local engineering colleges, which are so-called IORs, but do they have the expertise to be an IOR? If not, how to develop it? It is not like, okay, then we'll not include them IOR. That is not the solution. How to bring them to a level where they can be an effective IOR? That should be one. So the financial thing, I think there has to be a central pool, independent of CPCB and SPCB, so that there could be some conflict of interest. That I know because we work MPCB a lot, also a lot, or many other institutes hold their own SPCB. So if there is a funding is dominated by SPCB or municipal corporations, then there could be a conflict of interest. So there has to be a centralized authority independent of all this. They should distribute the fund and they should take over the NCAP and overall all other schemes related to air quality, health, air quality, climate, air quality, and population, etc., air quality economy. So all these things come under one umbrella, and let that independent entity held everybody accountable, including us. that we are giving you fund, but we are not getting desirable result. What is it? And then like NGOs like you who can create the awareness, there should also be given some component in the NCAP. At least some way the involvement should be there, so that you time to time raise these questions, this is awareness, and the people also can connect through you.
Thank you, Professor Chakravarti. And I think that's where I will bring in Dr. Salve. You mentioned a lot about lack of manpower, and you also, Dr. Salve, did touch upon the need to build local health evidence. I want to ask you here, is there capacity in public and private health departments to kind of actually get that evidence? How can we better collect data, maybe at the OPDs, etc., to build a case for air quality and health?
Yeah. So just to continue what Professor Chakravarti said, from the health side, let me also tell few initiatives which has been taken up and which are, I think, first time it has happened in the country. We have a district level officials, health officials who take care of the all program related interventions at every district. So district is an administrative unit where all health related intervention happens. So first time we all were involved, came together through the National Center for Disease Control. We developed a module for training of the district level officer, district nodal officers in air pollution and health. So this is the first time the training in the country happened across all almost we have covered almost all states where the state level nodal officers as well as the district level nodal officers were trained in air pollution related impacts of health, what action should they do at various level, and how they integrate this interventions with the other programs they are handling. So this is the first part. So that is happening, and this is a regularly now being these trainings are being conducted under the aegis of National Center for Disease Control, and we are also working with them at AIMS at various levels, at the state level, district level. That is the first part. This is for the doctors and the program managers. There are also now training proposed for, as I said, the medical officers who work at the primary health center, which is the first contact point as far as the public health setup is concerned, for the communities. So what action they should do, how to report the data from the health side respect to the air pollution. So all these are the component of medical officer training. Now there is also training module for the ASHA, which are the community volunteers as far as the health ministry is concerned or health programs are concerned. So they are being trained how to sensitize community with respect to the air pollution related health hazard, how to collect the information in the surveillance to air pollution related diseases, what are the mitigation measures to be taken in the extreme situation, let's say orange alert, in the extreme weather situation or air pollution related emergencies. So all these are all part of these training packages, and this is going on currently. Second intervention, I will say, which you can see in the background, the KFOR India, which is a collaboration between AIMS and IIT Delhi. This is a collaborative for air pollution health effect research. So here we are trying to do a joint capacity building. As Professor Chakravarti also said, that there is need for capacity building early career researchers. So here we take the capacity building programs for, especially for early career researchers from the both sides, from the exposure scientist sides as well as the health scientist sides. In this training program or 3 to 5 days training program, we train them in the basic epidemiological study designs. We train them in terms of data availability. We train them in terms of the exposure data availability and how to link both these data sets and how to put up a sort of a research question for grant writing specifically related to air pollution and health. So that we are trying to do through this KFOR India network. We also have in our website of KFOR India, if you log in, if you visit website, you will see we have mapped all the research evidence available from the country in the state-wise manner in the map of India. So this is a one-stop solution, or I will say one-stop place for getting or reviewing the evidence available. And I will also encourage all of you, through you to everyone, that you should come and visit the website and share with us your study. We will also map your study in the website. So I will just putting up, this is such initiatives are required to collaborate or to bring both sides together. As Professor Chakravarti said, that we should not work in silos. We have to work in tandem. We have to work in harmony. So joint capacity building initiatives, it is what is required. Joint training program, it is what is required. Joint research based proposal submission and execution, it is what is required to really take this agenda forward. A few things I just want to highlight through you, that I think most of this telecast or the broadcast will be seen by the educational institutes and the faculties, I will say. So encourage your student to take up this idea in the PhD thesis, in MD thesis, or MSc, whatever dissertation you are doing. So just to share example, one of my student is doing a small topic which is evaluation of the use of this Suffer and the Samir application of the air quality monitoring. We do not have a data about it. So how you should inform the government to modify or to improve this air quality monitoring applications. So I strongly recommend all our faculties or professionals who are working with the student, so let them take this as a small research. So it will really helpful to generate a good local evidence. And definitely, we really need to work in unison to convince the policymakers to continue funding, to increase funding, not only, and also commitment, I will say, at various level. One thing we really need to understand, it is not a one sector which will drive. It is a multi-sectoral engagement which is required, be it a NGO sector, private sector, health, your environmental sector, be it petroleum or any developmental sector, because it has ramifications. All actions have ramifications on these sectors. So that's why the unison is required. But I still believe health should be in the center, because that will definitely convince both policymakers as well as community. That I firmly believe. And the collaboration is the way forward, with the positive commitment towards this thing.
Thank you. Looks like a long road ahead, but we seem to be at least moving in the same direction. And we hope over the next few years we are able to institutionalize and strengthen the air quality management efforts in implementing agencies, academic and health institutions, and other stakeholders. Uh, a big thank you to both of you for giving us very clear solutions, very clear responses to what could help shape the next phase of our air pollution mitigation policy and implementation.